Assalamu alaikum. This is Sadia Quram. Today's lecture is a reinforcement lecture. This is about your book, and in your book, this will be from chapter 1, Human Rights. So, if you want to learn properly, so you have to open your books. Today, we are going to discuss once again about human rights. So, what are the human rights? Basically, this will be the question that what are the human rights? So, the concept of human right is as old as human beings themselves. Okay. If you will see the history of human being or civilization, when the people started to live as the civilized nations, at that time, they realized that there must be some rights. So these rights are called human rights. Basically, these all rights like dignity, justice, fair pay, and many others like prosperity, to live in prosperity, to get justice, fair justice, and to receive the respect from other persons. So these are all and many other are called human rights. So we can see the definition of human rights on our screen. Those rights which must be granted to all human beings are called human rights. So, all human beings means every person has human rights, and he or she was born free. So, every person in the world and in every society has some human rights. So these are the basic rights, or these are called the fundamental rights. So this is all about the rights, like the right to get justice, right to buy anything, right to go anywhere, right to live happily, right to get good education, right to get the facilities of health or medical, right to speech, right to get fair salary or pay, right to start the movement, right to assembly, right to adopt any profession or business. So there are so many rights which are called human rights, and these are the basic or the fundamental rights of every society throughout the world. Every human being has been granted these rights by birth. So what will be the history of human rights? The concept of human rights, as I told you, is as old as human beings themselves. It means when there was the first human being in the world, he had also the basic or fundamental rights. So as I told you, there are so many rights. So everyone has free to go somewhere, to buy everything, to say anything within the limits. And so this is called the right of expression, right of speech, right to buy anything. So all these rights are were the part of human beings' life since when the this word was started. But the basic thing is that in the ancient time, there were no rights, there were no fundamental rights, or not any concept of the human rights within the different societies. Why? Because kings and queens and nobles, soldiers, generals were usually the most powerful persons in the most ancient societies those days. So when there was no any concept of human rights for the human beings or the citizens of any country. The reason was that at that time in the ancient era, There were kings and queens and nobles or soldiers, the soldiers who had power with them, or the generals. They all were the powerful personalities. So they didn't give any type of the right to the persons, the to the citizens of their kingdom. So kings and queens also claimed that be either gods or the children of gods. So they demanded to the citizens of their kingdom to obey them, and to as well as to worship them. So that was a very wrong thing. So at the in the ancient era, beta, this will be the history of human rights, how the human rights were given to the citizens of the world. Or you can say what will be the history of the human rights, how the people realized that there must be some rights, and they have the basic fundamental rights which are called human rights. So they struggled for them. They struggled for gaining their rights. With the passage of time, many scholars and leaders and different type of the writers started the struggle, and they realized that there must be the right to speech, there must be the right to get property, there must be the right to buy anything, to go anywhere. But when there was the era of kings and queens and different nobles means any person who has any powerful place in the government, or who has any territory, a vast territory. So he or she didn't give the right of his didn't give the basic human rights to their citizens. If any soldier has the power, and or the general were powerful at that time, because they were the head of the army, so people were afraid of them. So that's why they were powerful through their weapons. So they didn't give basic human rights for to the persons or the citizens of their era. So because of this, most of the areas in the ancient time, the citizens have had not any type of the rights. So for this purpose, so many leaders, scholars, writers started a struggle for the human rights, for gaining the human rights. First of all, you can see on your screen, it is all about Cyrus the Great. Cyrus the Great gave the first Charter of Human Rights. It means Cyrus the Great, first of all, you can see that this is the picture of Cyrus the Great, and he was the ruler of Persia. He was the ruler of Persia, and he believed in granting religious freedom to the people of countries he conquered. So Cyrus the Great was a great conqueror. Basically, he conquered many areas, many territories, so many regions. So he was not the type of the king which we studied in the previous slide. We studied in the previous slide. You can see once again, kings, queens, nobles, soldiers were usually the most powerful people in the most societies, and they didn't give or grant. They didn't give or grant any human right to the citizens. But the Cyrus the Great was a very different ruler. He didn't believe on these things. So he conquered so many areas of the world, and he was also the ruler of Persia. And Persia was the ancient name of Iran. So he was the ruler of Persia. So what was the objective of the government of Cyrus? The main objective of the government of Cyrus, that he believed in granting the religious freedom to the people of countries, those areas which he conquered. and added them in his kingdom. So what is the meaning of religious freedom? So most of the scholars and writers thought about very deeply thought about the human rights. So with the passage of time, when they realized that there must be the human rights for every person in the country, so in the different countries and in the different eras and different areas, most of the scholars started the struggle, and they have their own different ideas. Is it clear? So Cyrus had the idea that every person must have the freedom to do his religious practices with their own mindset, with their own concept. Is it clear? So Cyrus granted, in his era, Cyrus granted the religious freedom to the persons. As I told you, that those kings and queens who didn't give the rights, different rights to the citizens, they also said that they are the god and goddesses, or the children of the gods, and all the citizens of their country must to respect and worship them. But Cyrus was not that type of the king. He granted the religious freedom. He said to the citizens of his country that they are free to do their practices according their own religion. They are free to adopt any religion. So this is a great thing. So to adopt the religion, or to worship according our own religion, that is also a basic human right. So he also granted the basic human right of religion to the citizen, as well as he also gave the first charter of human rights. So also he also wrote a book which in which so many rights were being written. Okay, next one, Socrates was a philosopher of ancient Greece. So he related to the Greek. He was the scholar or and philosopher of ancient Greece, and he taught people to ask the question. So, beta, these are all the persons related to the different times, different era. So Socrates was basically a wise man of ancient Greece, and he taught people. Once again, I am going to tell you, he told or taught the people of his area, ask the question. To whom the people will ask the question? Yes, people will ask the question to the king or queen of their country, because there was no habit in the citizens to ask the question. And he said that which things are your property, the kings have not any right to capture these things, or to take these things which are your property. So ask the question, if any king will do any wrong thing with you, then you have to ask the question, why are you doing so, like this? So he taught the people to ask the question to the king. The rulers of his city became angry. At that time, beta, every city has its own ruler. So the when any ruler like Cyrus, which we studied in the previous slide, just Cyrus conquered so many cities. So he was a great conqueror. But most of the rulers were the just ruler of their own city. So every city has a shape of had a shape of a country. Every city was called, especially in Greek. In Greek, every city has its own separate ruler. Every city has its own the walls surrounding the city. For the safety of the city, there were the so many gates, and in that city the people of all over the city were lived together, and there was also the palace of the king. So every that's why here is written city, the word city. The rulers of his city became angry, and he was sentenced to death in 399 BC. So, sentence means he was punished, he was being sentenced. सो उसे क्या हुआ कि उसे मार दिया गया। सोक्रेट्स को सजा दी गई और उन्हें कहा गया कि यू हैव टू स्टॉप टू टॉट द टू टीच द पर्सन्स of their of your city. So the rulers were angry with Socrates, and they said, the ruler of his city said to Socrates, if he will say to the people, ask the question, so we will punish you, and asked him to stop teaching. They asked the Socrates to stop teaching. He refused. Socrates refused because he believed it was his right to say what he believed to be correct. Is it clear? So, say any correct thing is also another human right. I told you that there are so many human rights which the nature granted us, which we have when we were, and these rights are called our basic rights. So there is also the right to ask the question. If anyone will do wrong with us, we this is our right to ask the question. So that was the teaching of Socrates. He said to the people of his city, asked the question to the rulers, and the rulers said to the Socrates, and to stop teaching the people. And the Socrates refused because he believed that it was a right to say, and he believed that it was his basic right to say a right thing to the people. If he said, Socrates said, if I will see any wrong thing, I will teach the people. To ask the question to the ruler, why are you doing so? Why are you doing this? So, as a result, the ruler sentenced Socrates in 399. Today, we know that freedom of expression, or the right to say what one believes to be correct, is very important. So, if you will see, then you can see that Socrates gave the right of freedom of religion for the first time. And then Socrates gave the teaching, or he taught to the people about the right to say a correct thing, or right of speech. Is it clear? So these two most important rights were given by Cyrus the Great, the freedom of religion, and second one, the freedom of speech by Socrates. Is it clear? Okay. Next one is teaching of Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. So, what were the teaching of Holy Prophet according the human rights, according Quran and Sunnah about human rights? The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam taught us to respect other people's rights. So that is the basic thing by our holy prophet. So he taught us to respect other people's right. In a famous sermon before his death, he told his followers that all human beings are equal and no Arab is superior to a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab is superior to an Arab. So this is very famous and common saying of Holy Prophet about the human rights, and he said in these wording, in his words, he said that no one is superior to another, whether he is rich or poor, whether he is white or black, whether he is Arab or non-Arab. Everyone is equal in the in Islam, and everyone is equal in Islam, and just only those who will be superior, those firmly believe in the oneness of Allah. So those who believe in oneness of Allah, they were superior in Islam. But Islam teaches us equality, equality with the Muslims, between the Muslims, with equality with the non-Muslims, minorities. Is it clear? So one once again we will take the review of the teaching of Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, as I told you, this is very famous sermon of the Holy Prophet, and the Holy Prophet taught us to respect other people's right. So, that is an other very important right of human beings, and that is respect other people. If we will respect the other people, in return, they will also respect us. So, that is very simple thing. So Islam also teaches us about all the human rights, about all human rights. Islam gave us all the basic fundamental human rights. So through Quran and Sunnah. And what is the meaning of Sunnah? The way to follow, the way of Holy Prophet, the way of Holy Prophet, which he did everything which is written in the Holy Quran. He practiced all these things through his words and deeds. So teaching of Holy Prophet are greater than everything, and he taught us to respect other people's rights. Okay, once again, now we will see the definition of human rights. So you can see the different rights. Now you can be cleared about the definition of human rights. Human rights are basically those rights which are granted all human beings. And in today's lecture, I told you about some scholars and writers and conquerors who granted one by one different rights to the people of their era, because before that there were no rights. Every right was there in the court of the king or the queen, and also they said they didn't give anyone to say anything against them, to say any right thing, or to do the practice according their religion. They also said that they are the god and goddesses and worship us. So all these things were wrong, and the Cyrus the Great, Socrates, and many other scholars and philosophers started to think about the human rights, and they started the struggle, and they taught the people of their era about human rights. And I also told you that there are so many rights which are also written in your book, and there are so many rights which we have, and these are called basic human rights. Some of the rights are here, as I told you. For example, the right of dignity, the right to justice, the right to fair pay, and the right to be united, the right to live with prosperity, and the right freedom of speech, as well as the right to movement, start any movement, the right to expression, the right to ownership. It means the right to buy anything, the right of equality, especially which our holy prophet taught us about equality, that everyone in the Islamic society will be equal. No Arab will be superior to non-Arab, no white will be superior to black. So there must be equality. So this is very important right, the right of equality. The right to justice is also very important. So these are the basic rights which are called basic human rights or the fundamental rights. So that's all for today. Take care. Allah Hafiz.